After you go into contract, what happens next? What can you expect? We walk you through each step of the process.
Liz.
What up?
Hey, friend. So somebody has just they've locked up a deal. They're in contract. They had their offer accepted, and they're sending you the contract. What's the first thing that they should do? What happens next? What's going on?
Well, if it's a standard investor, I'm likely wishing that they went back in time and talked to me about the deal prior to me getting into contract. Because welcome to our lives.
Yeah.
I love you investors, but at the same time, talk to your loan officer. Like, we're here to protect you and kind of see those red flags and whatnot. But typically, the standard investor says, oh, by the way, I'm in contract on something. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you. Why didn't we talk first?
Oh, yeah.
More so, again, just for protection. More than likely, a lot of our experienced investors know what the hell they're doing. They're smart. They get it. But there's just so many, like, just teeny tiny caveats that we just want to try to protect. And as rates are changing and guidelines are adjusting, like, we just want to be mindful of that. But assuming that we did have a great conversation, you know exactly what you're walking into, next steps are doc collection, I would say. So great, you sent me the purchase contract. There's going to be a couple other things. And this is assuming we haven't already worked with you. More than likely, if we've already worked with you, we have almost everything to get your deal started, which is awesome. That is probably the best thing about working with a broker is once we have your stuff, we have it indefinitely. And then honestly, after that, you're really just purchase contract, bank statement, updated assuming, and like a title company contact.
Yeah.
And then we are off to the races doing our thing. And that's where this can become a very much well-oiled machine is when we start to do deal after deal after deal, knowing that you're getting access to 40 to 50 different lenders by that one set of documents being collected. So backup docs. You got LLC documents, which includes
Operating agreement, EIN letter, possibly a letter of good standing.
Yep. And then articles.
Articles of incorporation. And also, if you're investing out of state, a lot of times the lender will require you to register with that state as a foreign entity.
Yeah. Or so it's kind of where is your LLC and where are you investing?
Exactly.
So if you're in Ohio and you're investing in Ohio, you're solid. You're good. If you're investing in Ohio, but your LLC is in Delaware, Wyoming, or one of those sweet spots that everyone kind of opens their LLCs at, we're likely going to need that additional document to say you can function here.
The other thing that is so important to have ready to rock at the beginning is a scope of work if we're doing some value add. So if this is hard money, if you're going to be rehabbing something, make sure that before you've made that offer, you've walked that property with your contractor so that you have an idea of what this is going to be, because this is going to be tens of thousands of dollars more than likely in repairs.
Or that you've put enough time in the contract to do this and you didn't write an as-is contract.
Yeah.
Like you have an out in case you do, maybe your contractor didn't have enough time to get out there. Make sure you write a long enough contract to give them a handful of days. So standard contract for a hard money loan should be at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks from us having docs and moving. Not, we have a 2-week contract, but I'm going to take 2 or 3 days to get documents to you and 2 to 3 days to get my contractor out there, and then you can start. No. All docs in hand, 2 weeks from that point. But yeah, I mean, unless you're adding a couple of those days to set up your LLC, get with your scope of work, and that you have an out, because a lot of these investor deals are as-is offers, meaning that if the scope of work does come in higher, you're between a rock and a hard place. I actually had a deal. Oh my gosh, hear the shenanigans.
Yeah.
I had a deal recently. This doesn't happen often, where the lender's like, hey, that's a really big budget item. Let's dig in a little bit deeper. So I had a deal down in Cincinnati. The contractor allocated, I want to say it was like $25,000 to a foundation budget. And the lender said, hey, let's have someone that's like an expert go confirm that $25,000 is enough. Part of me, the loan officer in me was like, this is bullcrap. Like, we shouldn't have to do this. But and the investor was like, is this really necessary? I am so grateful that I didn't get the condition waived, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that we did go do this. So the contractor is not a foundation expert.
Yeah.
And like to a certain extent, like, let's give that person some grace because like, again, this is not their specialty.
Yeah.
The inspector didn't foresee any issue. Yes, he knew that there was foundation concerns, but he thought even $25,000 would have covered it.
Yeah.
They had a foundation guy come out, and like they were saying words that I'd even understand in regards to like foundation concerns. It was going to be $200,000 to fix the foundation that was falling. If you know Cincinnati, it's like a bunch of hills.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of leaning on a mountain. And it was so bad, it was going to cost $200,000. Newer investor, out of state. He calls me, and he's just somewhat heartbroken because he's like, I just lost $2,500 in an EMD. But I was like, buddy, $2,500 lost, not $200,000 lost. Like, mindset, like, just keep, I know, like, it doesn't feel good, but this is the best scenario that could have played out.
Yeah.
So it's just like stuff like that. So back to your scope of work, make sure you've had a contractor walk the property, make sure you know what that number truly is going to be, so that not only this number's accurate, but we can get going as soon as you send this contract.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have NAD docs, we have a scope of work, we have a purchase contract.
Yep.
What else do we need?
Bank statements.
Yeah,
we need some money. Yeah. Prove to us that you got money.
Yeah. And again, I will say again, if you're ever using private money, tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us. It's not an issue.
Yeah.
We have lenders that are comfortable with it, but we need to know because our goal as a broker is to get you the best terms and conditions that are out there. That might not be with the lender that is comfortable with private money funding.
Yep.
So just let us know. I always say, tell us your dirty secrets and we'll make sure that it works with whoever we're positioning you to. If we don't know, that secret will come up. It will become an issue.
Yep.
And the last thing we want is for this to be on day, 8, 9, 10, 11, and all of a sudden we're delaying closing, more so because we didn't know. So, so now we have NAD docs, purchase contract, scope of work. We have money.
I guess it's just process after that. So it's like, so what's going to happen in the process? There's going to be a valuation of the property. If you're brand new, definitely it's going to be a human being coming out and looking at the property. Yep. If you've got some experience, depending on the lender, they might be able to just take some pictures of the property and instead
do like a desktop analysis.
Do a desktop analysis. So it just kind of depends, but we'll talk to you about what that process will be once we get into it.
Yep.
And then and keep in mind, one of the first out-of-pocket costs that you're going to have for this is going to be paying for that appraisal. So it's maybe $500.
I'm going to correct you only because I think our team just sent us an email recently that appraisal costs are starting to increase. So I think we're closer to like $650 to $750 on a single family.
Yeah.
Not our doing, I promise. Like if we're continuing to shop against multiple appraisal management companies. To be honest, I think it's because the appraisal world is starting to retire and whatnot, and there's just not as many out there, so they're kind of needing to cherry pick a good cost one or a more expensive one to get it done quickly. So that's on a single family. If you go multifamily, you're definitely $750 to, gosh, I want to say $1,500. I would hate for that to be the cost, but it could, especially if it's on the outskirts of a major metro. But yes, only out-of-pocket cost.
Yeah, so you'll have that out-of-pocket cost. Depending on the lender, they might require something called a CDA, which is I don't even remember, but it's a third-party appraisal review, collateral desktop something.
Appraisal.
Appraisal?
I don't know.
But anyways,
second set of eyes.
It's $129, $150.
Yep.
So once the appraisal comes back, you may need to pay that as well. Sometimes that's a surprise to people, so I just want to point that out so that you're not, because it seems like the smallest paper cuts hurt the worst. It's like, look, you're paying thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars for a property. $129 should not be that big a deal.
It becomes a big deal.
But it becomes a big deal in that moment because people are emotional and
we understand. You guys just want to know what the fees are up front. So that makes sense.
So once that happens, then, assuming that we've collected all the conditions, then
title and insurance has been ordered and back. So knowing who the title company is up front. In the state of Ohio, the seller gets to pick the title company. And actually, I say that, but in Dayton, they do not.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, I think it's like a flip of a coin. I don't know why it's different
just depends
everywhere.
on the market.
Long story short, figure out who your title company is. Because I don't know how many times, especially in the investor community, I think it happens more often with there not being realtors as much involved, is, we should send it to this place. And I'm like, okay, sweet, awesome, moving along. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, just kidding, it was supposed to go here. And I'm like, guys, get it together, get it together. So knowing where title's going, and then insurance is up for you to determine. We do have contacts that we like to refer to that specialize in this business, because not every insurance agent is good at investment real estate. So be mindful of that. Whoever you use for your primary residence may not be appropriate for your investments. So now we have the file's moving through processing. We have title, we have insurance, we have the appraisal.
And we submit to underwriting.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So a lot of lenders, especially in the DSCR space, they want the full package. They want everything.
Yeah.
They want
to
everything.
look at it once.
They want to look at it one time and sign off on it. And so what a lot of people don't realize is we are working with the lender, usually their processing staff, our processing staff, and then so as a loan officer, I have a counterpart that's often called an AE, which is like a loan officer to a loan officer. And so we have this team that's working together to make sure that we have the prettiest file possible, because we want to make it easy for that underwriter to say yes. Yeah. That's the whole goal, is just say yes, and then we can move on to closing. Once the underwriter looks at it and says yes, then we would get what's called a clear to close.
Best words in real estate are clear to close. CTC.
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 And but guess what? If you're clear to close, can you close immediately? No. Can we? Oh, well, you just got clear to close at 10 a.m. Can we close at 1 p.m. today, Liz?
In very, very few scenarios, yes. But more often,
shut your mouth.
Don't tell the people that. Don't tell the people
Don't
that.
say this.
That's the optimist in me. No, I mean, all of our lenders want 24-hour doc prep.
Yeah,
now,
at least. Yeah.
A rush is allowed. Sure. Is a rush of 4? Well, you would just said 3 hours. Probably not.
No.
I mean, if it's early morning, can we close in the late afternoon? Yeah. Probably, maybe, depending on the lender.
It depends on the lender.
And that's the thing. We will know this up front, though. So let's not.
I mean, and I use lenders that they want 48 hours to close. So none of this like 4-hour crap. We're not doing that. But you know, and as long as everybody has done the stuff, as long as you've got our docs in a timely manner, and everything is above board, then we should have plenty of time, you know, to get everything done.
And then funding, typically.
So
funding is when money's actually exchanged. So the lender sends their money, you send your down payment, and then everything gets dispersed back out. That typically takes an hour at least, maybe 2 hours, depending on if everyone is engaged. The likelihood that that's going to be the case is slim. So it typically takes a handful of hours. So if your closing's late in the day, don't expect funding. If you close at 4:30, you are not, well, you're past the wired time anyway. So there's no way that that's funding the same day. So if you're wanting funding to go out the same day, you need to close at noon.
Well, I do a significant number of out-of-state investors.
Oh, that's a whole nother bag of tricks.
And so that's important to realize, that if you live in California and the property is in, I don't know, Alabama, you're not funding that same day.
No.
You're going to sign the docs in California on, let's say, Tuesday, and then those get overnighted to the title company. Once they have the physical docs in hand, then
Which is contingent on when UPS, FedEx drops off the docs.
Then those docs are then submitted to the lender, and they review, and they have to sign off and say, yeah, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Sometimes, most times, they're not all dotted and crossed. So then title has to make some minor corrections. And then eventually we get funding. So it might not be funded the next day. It could be funded the day after that even.
Yeah.
So just keep all that in mind, that it's not an instantaneous process. It's a very analog process.
And to be honest, the reason why we mention this is if you're not setting that expectation with your wholesaler, with your seller, you may get an angry seller because they're just not aware. So I think it's like, if you have questions, I always talk about, like, I don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Ask questions. There are no dumb questions in investment real estate. These are loan products that not the traditional average Joe or Jane uses. So, like, ask. Because honestly, your question will allow me to go down a rabbit hole of explaining more and more to you to ensure that your knowledge base is stronger. But I don't know that you don't know this or that or these or those. So
and let's say you're a savvy investor. Let's say you buy a house a month. Great. Good for you. That's awesome. Guess what? We do this 100 times a month. We have 100 loans in process at any given time.
Yep.
And so we're seeing the wildest stuff. And so definitely ask us those questions, because it'll only make it smoother for everybody.
I love my savvy investors, but they still run into stuff as well. And I try to say that as often as possible, because I think the newbies tend to get really hard on themselves when they don't know something and they feel like they should have, and they get really discouraged. And I'm like, guys, my investors that do multiple deals a month are
Yeah.
still running into figuring out what their exact process is.
Yeah.
And I think understanding the lending process and how we're going to, facilitate your deal from signing of the contract to signing of the loan docs is a huge way to make sure that you're setting expectations clearly and you're making this process as stress-free as possible.